Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of the Fourth and Goal podcast. I'm your host, Drew, along with my co-host, Rob, still stateside for one more week, though next week might not be. Rob, tell the people how you're doing.
We're doing great. Yes, indeed. Back here in the US of A. Heading to Mexico on Saturday. Going to lose out on some FanDuel action, but we'll find a way to place our friendly wagers. Have no fear. Let's go. Here we are. 2 weeks left of football.
I would like to point out we are in no way sponsored by FanDuel or any other service. That's just the service that we use. But hey, FanDuel or any other betting site, if you would like to sponsor us, we might not say no. So, you know. But either way,
Right now we're sponsoring FanDuel.
Yeah, literally. We're paying for FanDuel based on recent bets. They staked me a bit to start off the year, but no, not lately. Either way, Rob, let's get into the episode. There's a lot to cover, and as we'll start for the non-playoff teams, which is most now, with the coaching carousel and how that's looking. Rob, why don't you break down what we know from the coaching carousel thus far?
Sure. Well, for some reason, the Cowboys have brought back Mike McCarthy for another year at least. We can get into that in a little bit more detail. Gerard Mayo is in New England for the foreseeable future, which I think was in the secession papers. We might have talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
The Raiders made a good decision finally by bringing on Pierce. And the Titans hired Callahan, the Bengals offensive coordinator, who was probably going to get a shot somewhere. I don't think that's an upgrade from Vrabel, but that is where we are. And then we still have a couple of teams out there looking for coaches. The Falcons, the Panthers, the Chargers, Seahawks, the Washington football team. But more importantly, Bill Belichick or Vrabel do not have jobs. What are you thinking on this front?
Well, it's not just them. Bill Belichick still needs to sign somewhere. Vrabel still needs to sign somewhere. Jim Harbaugh still needs to sign somewhere. Pete Carroll, he's in that weird consulting thing with Seattle, but I think he's available as a coach still, and he still wants to coach. So there's a lot of really good, really highly touted coaches out there without jobs for these 5 roles. So going to be tough to see a lot of newbies getting work.
That's why it was interesting to see Callahan going to the Titans, although he has been, I think it showed you when Browning stepped in and won a lot of games, and that team stayed competitive despite the Joe Burrow going out. In fact, that team was hurt and in and out all year long, so that could be a testament to the coaching. I don't know if that's a very desirable job. I think we've talked about the lack of personnel over in Tennessee on the football field, on the gridiron itself. So we'll see what comes of it. I'm still thrilled about the Antonio Pierce deal in Las Vegas. I think there was Max Crosby had threatened to retire or demand a trade if they weren't going to bring him back. So I think that's all good there. And then Mayo obviously was pretty chalk up in New England.
Yeah, some good signings. I think there's pretty heavy rumors that it's going to be Harbaugh with the Chargers as well, which makes a lot of sense, I think. And then you also got Belichick in the Falcons seems to be cooling, as well as Ben Johnson in the Commanders. I pay attention as a Lions fan to Ben Johnson. He was betting 5 days ago at minus 250. He's plus 600 now. So
really?
He is
then who's the favorite for that job if it's not
There's
him?
No real favorite right now. It's kind of just like nobody knows. Like Ben Johnson was the favorite. Now it's like there's no real signs anywhere.
You had San Diego, not San Diego, sorry, LA as the destination for Belichick, the head coach of the Chargers. If Harbaugh does indeed sign there, where do you see Belichick going?
Well, I think Falcons. Belichick to me was
that doesn't make sense to me.
It was a Chargers. It was a Cowboys if that job became available, or Falcons, which he was interviewing with. And right now, Cowboys unavailable. Doesn't look like Chargers going to be available. Falcons, they do make sense to me. It's a team that.
Why not?
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to say, why not the Seahawks? Why can't Belichick go over there?
I mean, I think it's one of those things you got to look at what the team wants, and Pete Carroll was already there. Like, I guess it would be the second time that Belichick replaced a Pete Carroll team, way back when in New England. But no, I think when you fire a really long tenured, well respected coach, you're typically looking for fresh blood. I don't see a team going from long tenured guy that's well respected to long tenured guy that's well respected. It's typically you go from kind of one to another or back. You don't typically go like hop in between. Like the
Right.
Chargers were with Brandon Staley, who was like the new hotness when he came in. And now they're like, no, we're going for tried and true. And you see that in the coaching hires. A lot of the times it's if you had an old vet, you go to a young buck. If you had a young buck that didn't work out, you go to an old vet.
You're right. I'm struggling to find a situation in which an old timer, like legacy 15 years or something, was replaced by another old timer of a long time, right? Like yeah, there's something about that culture or that kind of the hierarchy that needs a little disruption after that long. An example is when Marvin Lewis left the Bengals, right? They brought in a young buck over there.
Yep.
When the Cower left the Steelers, you had Tomlin taking over. So I kind of see what you're saying with that. It's interesting that just doesn't happen. I wonder if that's more of a psychological thing or cultural thing or
I think
whatever.
it's a
But
little bit like when you have a well respected veteran that other teams would go for. Like, think about the Patriots right now. When they get rid of Belichick, what's bringing in a guy that's already been around the block going to do? It's like if you want a guy who's been around the block, you
right,
already had the best one.
right,
Like,
right, right, right.
or you
And
already
you're not gonna bring in
had.
like Pete Carroll or something. Harbaugh maybe just because he was like college, but
Yeah, he doesn't have it. He's a hugely hot head coach, but he actually doesn't have that much NFL experience, only like 5 years.
yeah, exactly. And a losing
Yeah.
Super Bowl at that.
Okay, but he still made a Super Bowl. Let's come on now. But either way, that's enough on the head coaches. Let's move in. Some coordinator news. The Eagles cleaning a bit of house. This is what we talked about last week. They fire both their OC and their defensive coordinator. It looked like they were going to keep that OC, but he just got let go of today.
I'd actually seen something that he was sticking around, but yeah, it looks like in the last couple hours or so that has changed.
Yep.
Um, I good. They needed to. Obviously, they needed a lot of fresh blood in Philly. I don't know why the head coach is still there. I'm not sure that
I
he's deserved a place either.
I think at the end of the day, like what you got to understand is this head coach, like he did take a team to a Super Bowl and took a team to an 11-6 record. Like when you're when you're a coordinator, it's like okay, our offense isn't working well with the personnel. When it's you're a coordinator, our defense isn't working well with our personnel. When you're a head coach, it's like hey, I took a team to a Super Bowl. I will trust the head coach for a little bit longer. But what was the difference between last year and this year? New coordinators. We can cut ties with the coordinators, but I'm not willing to cut ties with the coaches. That's my view. I think it's the right call. Trust me, I don't love Sirianni. He's got the most punchable face I've ever seen in my life. Like just straight up, look at it. It's punchable. But at the end of
There's
the
a classic
go for
There's
it.
a classic video of him trying to like send the Chiefs back, or it was like some foul that the other team did, and he's doing like the fans like send him back, and Jalen Hurts had to be like, Coach, come on,
Oh
let's be
no,
responsible
it
adults
wasn't
here.
just that. He was giving the he was looking over to the Kansas City side of the field and giving them double birds.
Oh, okay, yeah,
And
even
Jalen Hurts
better
was
or
like,
worse.
bro, we are in the Super Bowl. Every camera is on us. Chill the fuck out.
But that doesn't save Jalen Hurts from the deer in headlight 1,000 mile stare that he had at the end of that game. Like,
No,
has
and
he
that's
just
why.
completely fallen off from what took him to the Super Bowl in the first place? Like, that
Well,
team looked shell shocked.
let me be clear. I'm going to sound like a bit of a Jalen Hurts hater here, and I'm not meaning to be. I think he's a decent quarterback, but I don't think he's as good as we thought he was last year. And the evidence I have to say that is, if you look at Gardner Minshew this year alone, Gardner Minshew this year looks like a fucking stud under a Shane Steichen offense. I just think Shane Steichen didn't get the credit he deserved as an ingenious offensive mind. Like, obviously, he got a head coaching job. He was considered good offensively, but I think he's a lot better than we gave him credit for. He is Shanahan level. He is like these elite offensive mind, like Sean McVay level. And so I think it was Steichen that was lifting Jalen Hurts to the level we saw when Jalen Hurts might not be a top 5 quarterback, maybe a you know today's NFL
Yeah,
somewhere
yeah, yeah.
between 12
You're
and like
three.
6, 12 and 6,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
somewhere in
No,
that
it's interesting
range.
because you've been a big Jalen Hurts fan, fantasy and otherwise. So for you to have said that is a bit of not a condemnation, but I think it's illuminating to how much Shane Steichen might have been the guy in Philly
Yeah,
last year as opposed to Jalen Hurts.
exactly.
Hurts was your MVP pick this year, in fact.
Yeah, I picked him for MVP, and like I think I've realized now, and I'm willing to accept that it's like, nah, it seems like Shane Steichen was the real driving force to that. And trust me, I'll tell you right now, in fantasy, I am gunning hard for Anthony Richardson next year. Hard. That is my guy.
Hey, that
I,
was my rookie of the year pick heading into the year.
I, yeah.
Obviously got derailed a little bit by injuries.
But yeah, either way, moving on to a couple other things. Anything else you want to talk about in news and notes?
Yeah, I think we're looking at the off season. There's always rule changes, rule considerations. A big one in the spotlight after the game, the Bills Chiefs game, is the fumble in the back of the end zone. So when an offensive player is approaching a goal, or sorry, a touchdown from their side into the goal line, and they fumble through the back of the end zone, it becomes a touchdown for the defense. I
A
still
touchback.
like this rule. I think it's good that players are punished for, in that instance, the play on the Chiefs Bills game where you had the Chiefs player reaching out over the line, being greedy, instead of just going down. I think it was second down. They still had 1 or 2 downs left, and just going down, he tried to reach. As a result of the reach, he got punched, and it fumbles out the end zone. Bills get the ball back at his touchback. Sorry, I still think this is a good rule. I think it's the right gravity and consequence for the moment, but it is in the spotlight. So I want to hear your 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I don't have a total problem in this rule. To give you perspective, like I know Canadian football, obviously as a Canadian here. Sorry to all you Americans who hate Canadians, but we don't hate you. Totally. But
You know, Canada would say that.
yeah, either way. In Canadian football, it's actually like so on onside kicks. If the kicking team hits the ball out of bounds, it's the kicking team's ball. And so, like, these are some of the different rules. And so, I actually like the fact that there's a bit of a turnover. It's like, guess what? You fumbled it. And you fumbled it into the end zone and you couldn't recover it. Like, I don't like that it's advantage offense in a fumble. I like that I think it should be a bit of a free for all. It's like, it is a fumble, it is a live ball. It should not defer to the team that had it if it just gets knocked out of bounds. So I kind of like this area where it's like there is a part of the field, albeit a small part, where it's like it's actually advantage defense instead of advantage offense. It's a small part of the field, but it's the most important part of the field. It allows for it to be a little bit more of a free for all in that zone. I like that because you should be punished for fumbling. It shouldn't be, oh, we fumbled, knock it out of bounds, we're fine now.
Yeah, now we're on the one again or something. I agree
Yeah.
100%. It's similar to like the safety and the rules that surround a safety when you're on the backside, like when you're defending your own end zone, right? Where it's like if it's intentional grounding in the end zone, that's a safety, right? In the same way that like if you've gotten in and you're about to penetrate the opposing end zone, then you need to be aware of ball security and be on top of it. So I think a lot of this is overblown. I would be more upset if they changed this rule than like the tush push rule. But I think really both of them should still be in the league
Eh,
and in the game. We've seen that the Eagles didn't win at all with the Philly the brotherly shove. So why change that rule either? You see all these other teams try to imitate it, they can't. Leave it in the game. Same with the fumble rule.
you know my thoughts about that one. I think the tush push should be banned, but that's for different reasons than it being too good. But the last thing to point out on the fumble rule as well, because I think a lot of people don't know this, and I know it as a Lions fan because we got fucked on this rule because the refs made a wrong call. If you bat the ball out of the end zone, if the defense bats it out of the end zone, it's actually offense's ball at the one, officially per the rules. The Lions got fucked by this because this happened against them. The Seahawks batted it out the back of the end zone, and they gave it a touchback, even though the rules
Oh, like
specifically
if
say
they, oh, I see what you mean. If you
you
like
can't bat it
propel it
out.
forward.
If it fumbles out, that's fine. But if you bat it, it's offense's ball, which makes it so it's not just like you can't just bat it out. It has to be fumbled out of bounds.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. Yeah, it's in the same way like offensive players aren't allowed to like keep
Bat it
just
forward.
hitting the
Yeah,
ball, like fumbling the ball forward, right? Yeah, so that makes sense
exactly.
to me.
Yep.
But we'll
Okay.
see. I think sometimes people overreact to these rules in these big games in prime time, and so I don't think the NFL should do anything drastic here. They should focus on fixing the overtime rules first before they go ahead and change anything like that.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to get too deep into that because I can go on that forever. But either way, let's
Yeah.
move to our divisional recap. And you know what? Let's go in order of when the games happen. So we'll start with, honestly, probably the weakest game of them all, Ravens Texans.
Yeah. Honestly, the game was solid through the first half. It became a huge blowout in the second half. Honestly, I think it all turned when Kamai Fairburn missed the field goal in the first half. It really just took the momentum and the sails out of that team. But also, I think you had a bit of just you had the Ravens coming off a bye, well rested, angry. You had the Texans kind of floating high off of that win over Cleveland, playing really, really well. And then all of a sudden, they just went into the meat grinder in Baltimore in the cold. They're no longer at home in warm, sunny Houston. And CJ Stroud just didn't seem to have it. Their only touchdown was a special teams touchdown. I mean, I think the Ravens were who they thought we were. Sorry, they are who we thought they are, and the Texans are a young team, and they have a big, bright potential future. It blew my bet. I had a plus 17.5 on the Texans that they couldn't even keep it close. But at the end of the day, man, this Ravens team is impressive. It doesn't matter who gets hurt. They just plug in another player, whether it's running back, defensive back, linebacker, tight end. I think Mark Andrews is even healthy. Haven't missed him a beat. You got guys like Zay Flowers. There was some fourth string receiver catching a bunch of important balls for them. So there's something about this Ravens team that is scary.
Yeah, I did pick the Texans last week. Clearly a bad pick. Now I will acknowledge that was a little bit of gamesmanship. We talked about that on last week's podcast. To be clear, but either way, no. The Ravens, they're a really good team. The Texans, they had the magic. I finally tried to believe in it, but I think they finally showed they are what I thought they were, which is a team that, hey, they're young, they're exciting, but that's about it. They're going to get really good, but they're not quite there yet. Had a couple nice, lucky wins that let them get a little bit further than maybe they should have gotten realistically. But again, this is a team of the future. They just had a good present.
I mean, they also lost to the Panthers this year.
Yeah,
Let's not all get too excited about the Houston Texans.
And let's move on. The game that night, Saturday night, 49ers and Packers. I will acknowledge this was my favorite game. Just as an objective football fan, this was the most exciting game in my opinion.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I think the Packers showed a lot. Again, they came out punching people in the mouth. They have that run game out of nowhere all of a sudden. Aaron Jones seems healthy. He's a beast. Jordan Love is very composed. Down the stretch, he didn't quite have it together. But I thought for the most part, that game, he was making great throws. He was scrambling, getting outside the pocket when he needed to. Dude, CMC, that might be the MVP. He was just balling. And without him, the Niners were nowhere to be found. Purdy, again, looked a little shaky. Like, is he the next Tom Brady? Who knows? But
I mean,
he needs to step up a little bit more in prime time. But he did make some key passes in the fourth quarter that got him into position, saved that game for him. But I think it's all based around CMC, and he put up a hell of a show.
Yeah, well, let's be real. Like, look at Tom Brady's first 3 Super Bowl runs and tell me how much Tom Brady was doing in those first 3 Super Bowl runs. Like, come on now. Again, I'm not saying that Brock Purdy is Tom Brady at all at this point. I know the comparisons, but, like, no. I'm just saying, guess what? Brock Purdy actually is doing more statistically than Brady was doing back then. Not to say he'll get to the level.
Where did this Packers team come from, though? I mean, we talked about it a little bit last week, and this week again, they were really close to stealing that game at several points. And There was a couple of games that I watched. Like I remember they played Minnesota on a Monday night against their like third stringer and just like took it to them. They played a couple really good games down the stretch, but I mean, throughout the year, they were just actually there was a really interesting stat that they showed that there wasn't a single wide receiver that led the Packers, pass catcher that led the Packers in like receptions and reception yards. Every month, it was a different person. It was like Romeo Dobbs one month. It was their tight ends another month. It was like a running back another month, right? Like these guys have just spread the ball. A lot of dudes have stepped up. And LaFleur, I think, has that team in a place where we could make some rumblings in the division next year for sure.
Yeah, they're a good team. They could definitely. The NFC North is going to be really good next year. This could be one of the most competitive divisions in football. The one thing I took away from this game and the Packers' run more than anything was, do we have to start questioning if Aaron Rodgers was the problem in Green Bay last year? Seriously. Like, is it age? Is it, he's just a locker room cancer? I don't know. But the Jets had the same QB issues last year as this year, and they looked better last year. The Packers looked fucking great with the same team. I'm not saying
Yeah,
it
well,
is.
that's not really fair to the Jets. We didn't really get to see Aaron Rodgers perform, right? He went out on the
No,
season.
I understand. I'm saying still, last year, when it was the same issue, they looked better last year. That's all I'm saying. We don't have enough
Okay.
information, but I'm starting to see something that tells me, because I thought Aaron Rodgers was still going to be good. Now I'm less sold on Aaron Rodgers being good when he comes back, based on what I'm seeing from the Packers without Aaron
Well,
Rodgers.
it's a little Brett Favre-ish, right? Like, he can go and maybe win some games for other teams, but perhaps the backup was the guy who's been chomping at the bit. I'd be interested to see how this team performs next year. Knowing me, I'll probably pick them wrong 11 times out of 17, but
Yep. But yeah, let's move on to the Lions and the Buccaneers. I think the game that probably most objective fans, not myself not included, would have considered the weakest game on the slate.
Oh, okay, fine. In just the sense that like the Lions and the Bucks, Tampa Bay, Detroit aren't very like exciting TV markets, so not big fan bases. But I think most fans were pretty like hyped over Detroit. I saw something that the Detroit Lions was the most expensive playoff ticket outside of the Super Bowl ever, going
Yep.
for like $1,000 plus just to get in the arena. And this is Detroit. It said something like that game alone brought 50 million plus dollars to the Detroit economy, which is like half the GDP of Michigan or something. Sorry, Michigan. I know that's not necessarily true, but it's a good boost and good boon for the Detroit economy. I think people are loving kind of the Baker Mayfield has a new home and is being comfortable and enjoying himself and has like sort of a resurrection that we all like to see in the sport, dethroning or going farther than his Cleveland Browns, the former franchise that he was the last time they actually won a playoff game, right? So I think the storylines were there. The game was exciting. I thought again. I think there were multiple opportunities for the Bucks to win it. Your Lions, I think Campbell might have been coach of the year in a different set of circumstances, because he has obviously got something going there for that team where they're buying in. The players want to play for him. He's got the let's go for it on fourth down thing. Like it's not even a question. Even in the announcer booth, they're like he's going for it, right? Which is a far cry from even 5 years ago in the league. So with the oldest player being 29, man, if the Detroit Lions win this somehow, kudos, guys. Kudos. But I thought it was a hell of a game. Let's hear your obviously biased opinion on the matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Lions played well. I think Dan Campbell should definitely be in the conversation for Coach of the Year. Like, I know the Lions were a hype team, but like, guess what? We finished tied for the best record in the NFC. Like, we are a very good team. We won a lot of games, and like, we outpaced expectations even for a team that everyone said in the preseason had expectations that were out to lunch. Like, Dan Campbell's done a great job. The team's done great, and I mean, obviously, the Buccaneers isn't the toughest matchup in the divisional round. Like, this is a team that 2 weeks ago couldn't score a touchdown against the Panthers. Like, that's the barometer for bad, the Panthers. Um, But yeah, like I mean, the Lions have done everything. They're opening as pretty big underdogs in the NFC Championship game. But like, guess what? They made an NFC Championship game. First time in my lifetime. This makes it so. Since the NFL realigned, only two NFC teams have not made the NFC Championship game: the Commanders and the Dallas Cowboys.
Attaboy, Dallas, really just living up to America's team.
I did a bit of analysis on Dallas. This let me just say this one side note because I think this is hilarious. Dallas in this century has made the playoffs 10 times. Every other team that has made the playoffs at least 10 times has won a Super Bowl. Dallas hasn't even made a championship game.
Wow. That's, you know, it's very Dallas Cowboys, right? We've talked about this. We were waiting for that big loss of theirs, like an ugly loss that they should have won down the stretch. They didn't really have one. Maybe the Miami game on the road, and so they really were just saving it for the playoffs in typical
Yep.
Dallas Cowboys fashion. And then they brought back their head coach for some reason. You know what? Keep doing you, Mister
Yeah.
Jones.
Okay, well, let's move to the final game, the rematch. The third time in the last 4 years in the playoffs we saw the Bills at Chiefs, and for the third of three times we had the same result. Rob, let me know your thoughts.
Look, we were big on the Bills. They were at home. They had the vengeance. They had the chip on their shoulder. They had every reason and excuse to win this game, and they lost it. And to be quite frank, I put a lot of this on Josh Allen's shoulders right down the stretch. That last drive, man, he had he had guys in particular. I think it was the second down play where he had Diggs on a slant route, was wide open. Diggs could have easily gotten a first, if not the whole yard, and then he's thrown it into the end zone for some reason when they didn't need that. They just needed to get even closer on the field goal. You have another wide right. Sorry, Buffalo fans, but just a lore of this kind of happenstance there. Uh, I don't know who to blame here. Like, I don't want to put it all on Josh Allen's shoulders because obviously they would have never even been close without him. I think Diggs has lost a step. Clearly, he's just
Yeah.
nowhere to be found. He was no Amon Ra. He wasn't even a Mike Evans out there. I had him 4 receptions in the parlay, and he only got 3. So you need your biggest guy. I think Shakir was the best wide receiver for them all day. I don't know, man. I wanted more out of the Bills. Or is Pat Mahomes really just the guy? Is he just that good? I've been torn about this. I don't think I have
No.
like I don't know, man. What are your thoughts? I'm at a
Let
loss for words here.
let me get on my soapbox for a second.
All
Anyone who's
right,
saying
speak.
Josh Allen is the problem, Josh Allen doesn't perform in playoffs, all this stuff, they're not watching football. They don't understand the game of football. Like it's not just like they're wrong. They don't understand. Do you know what Josh Allen does in the playoffs? He has 21 touchdowns, passing touchdowns, 5 rushing touchdowns, 4 interceptions lifetime in playoffs. In this
Man,
playoffs, 2 games,
that's
he had 4 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns, 0 picks in 2 games. This guy shows the fuck up every time. You can't blame Josh Allen because you have the backups of backups at linebacker covering Travis Kelce, who we've been talking all year has lost a step and still caught 2 passing touchdowns because he's playing against practice squad guys. You can't blame Josh Allen because, as you said, Stephon Diggs just ain't catching the balls he used to catch. You can't blame Josh Allen for all of this. The second time they played, Josh Allen won the game, 13 seconds left, never saw the field again, yet somehow that was Josh Allen's fault. This game, he brought them on a massive drive into field goal range. Yes, the defense still needed to show up. Yes, it still would have been a tie game, but like he set them up to at least be in a tie game. Could have had another drive if Kansas City went down and scored, but his kicker missed it. And you know what? I love Josh Allen because he didn't blame the kicker. He didn't blame his linebackers. He didn't blame his defense. He didn't blame Stephon Diggs. He said it was on him. But like, let's stop as fans putting this on Josh Allen. Josh Allen's a great quarterback. The stats back it up. He just has been unlucky with the team and injuries.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, right? I just think that he has been so phenomenal. He is unstoppable in a lot of these situations where he can scramble and make plays and get the first down, whether through the air or with his legs. He did make a couple of, I think he forced it a little bit down the end, but man, gracious class act to just put it on his shoulders and be that kind of leader and have that level of class, which I think was really difficult in that situation, considering how bitter these losses and to the Chiefs every single time must be.
Oh yeah.
Then who? Okay, then who do you? I mean, I also feel like you really can't blame a kicker in those conditions at that distance, which can be pretty tough.
Nope.
Obviously, 44 yards isn't as bad as it used to be. Uh, but who?
At,
Okay, who do you put this blame on then?
at the end of the day, like we're not gonna like you don't necessarily need to blame someone. Like yes,
Blame.
it's a
Yeah,
tough
yeah.
kick, but at the end of the day, like you have a depleted defense. You are going against Patrick Mahomes. You are going against a team that has a much better defense than you, that has Patrick Mahomes, whereas receivers were catching balls for once. And it's like, guess what? If that offense is moving with the quality of that Kansas City defense, like that is an elite team. Like Josh Allen, even when he was balling out, Kansas City looked like the better team. Josh Allen was fucking dragging that team into a winning position, a position to be able to win. Yes, he didn't finish it, but I don't think it's anyone to blame. I think Kansas City played a really good game. I think they're a really good team. And with the offense playing like they did last week and this week, that team's fucking scary. And we're going to get into our picks, and I think this leads us into it. There's a reason why I've been loving Baltimore all year. But there you go, guys. I'm picking Kansas City. I've seen enough from Patrick Mahomes in this offense that I think it's fixed. And when you have a fixed Patrick Mahomes, I ain't taking no one over him. Except for maybe my Lions because I'm a homer.
Yeah, but that's just what fans do. I you know what? I maybe this team it's like those Laker teams, the Kobe years, or they just I guess the regular season just doesn't matter to them, or like they like recognize that they can flip that switch and just bring the paint when they need to in the playoffs because they do elevate. I thought this team was I don't want to say, done and dusted, but they were looking freaking ugly at the end of the year, right?
Yep.
There was a lot of games that they couldn't find it together. They didn't have anyone stepping up and making plays. Kelsey, I don't know what Tay Tay did before or after that game to motivate him, but he was balling out of his mind. I took the under on him on yards, of course, because I was like, he doesn't have it in him anymore. Maybe it was his brother up in the box that with his shirt off and his Canadian light beer in his hand, but it's hard to bet against this team at this point, and I'm not aggrieved at your pick at all. I think the Ravens and Lamar Jackson hasn't really been tested in the playoffs to a point where they have to battle from behind or make some big plays in a game that's tight where your sphincter tightens up a little bit like Josh Allen does every single time he plays against the Chiefs. It's on the road again. I don't know if that's going to matter. Obviously, it didn't seem to phase Pat Mahomes. I think that narrative actually might have motivated him a little bit, where it's like you've never played on the road. You guys are going to go into Buffalo and get smoked. And I think something in that locker room brings these guys together. I think it's a savvy pick. It's like taking Brady when he was an underdog against Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs when he was in the Bucks. It's like, how is this guy an underdog at all ever in the playoffs? And that'll lead into our picks as well. But I'm not mad at your pick. I'm not mad at your pick at all. Obviously, we have both chosen Detroit Lions, the team of fate in the NFC. Is this
Uh,
simply a biased pick, or do you think you guys have a chance?
oh, let me be clear. This is 100% biased from me. I have no idea why you're picking the Lions. I say this as a Lions fan. I love the Lions. I think we have a chance, don't get me wrong, but like I said at the start of the year, and we all know this, and so I'm not going to try to hide it. I picked the 49ers to win the Super Bowl. I have hundreds of dollars riding on the 49ers winning the Super Bowl. I think that's a fucking phenomenal team. Do I think the Lions
Yeah,
can beat them any given Sunday? Absolutely, I do. But, like, yeah, the 49ers are the favorites, and so they should be. The Lions have the issue of their pass defense. The big thing, the 49ers are a good matchup for the Lions. That's the one thing I will say. Because the Lions are really good at stopping the run. They're not so good at stopping the pass. And if Debo Samuel is injured and Christian McCaffrey can't be out there, can't be as effective running the ball, and we can cover that, and we don't have to worry too much about the wide receivers, we might be able to have a shot because I think our offense can keep up because outside of Tre'Davious Ward, that's the weakness of the 49ers is their cover corners.
And perhaps their quarterback. There were some moments from Purdy there. And again, we need a longer body of work. Maybe I'm talking shit about the next Brady, in which case I'll have to eat my words. But there was a couple moments in that game where I just looked at Brock Purdy and thought that maybe the moment was too big for him and that other guys stepped up and made the plays. I have a little paper tiger feeling about the Niners. That home field advantage in Santa Clara is like not that much of a home field advantage. And something about this Lions team could be destiny, right? They're young enough to not know any better. Goff's already been to the big game, so he has a bit of that understanding of what it takes, and he has a little edge from losing that. You have the beating the Stafford Rams and the trade. You have the Dan Campbell, nobody believes in us kind of thing. And you have a lot of really explosive players and the ability to make big plays. I think Sam Laporta is a huge matchup nightmare. Kittle is almost on the Kelsey level of like, does he have it? Has he lost a step? The Debo injury will be big. Is he in or out? Have we heard yet? Still questionable?
50-50 is what the word is.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I've been hearing. That'll be massive. He was clearly that was a big setback for them losing him so early, especially after a bye when like they've probably ran lots of plays and schemes for him. As long as CMC's on the field, it's going to be a matchup nightmare for the Lions. I think Aiden Hutchinson has a good chance of putting some pressure on Purdy, and I think that's the key. Purdy's not a scrambling quarterback, which decimates the Lions, but you need to put pressure on him. If he can sit back and take his reads and scatter the ball all over the field like he's done throughout the year, it'll be tough for you guys. But I just think that in my mind, this should be much more of a toss-up and a coin flip at this stage. The idea that they're giving 7 points to the Niners just seems disrespectful to the Lions to me, and I think they've been thriving off that all year. Maybe losing that game against the Cowboys with that awful decision has actually been that catalyst and turning point that you guys needed.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? But yeah, to your point on Brock Purdy, though, don't sleep on Brock Purdy. Like people who are sleeping on Brock Purdy, like, okay, yeah, he missed some throws. We got guys who we consider to be very good, if not elite quarterbacks, who miss those same throws. Like we've seen, like with the exception of like the top guys, and I'm not saying Purdy's a top guy, but like we see Tua make throws like that all the time. We see Jalen Hurts make throws like that all the time.
Trevor Lawrence.
Like all these guys make these throws, but because of Purdy's draft stock, when he makes one of these throws, we sit there and say, oh, he's just a system QB. But all these other guys, we sit there and say, no, they're elite. They just had a bad throw. Fair. It's like we paint it with two different brushes, and I think like to me, Purdy has shown enough and won enough and had enough body of stats that I'm like, nah, I ain't sleeping on this dude. Even if he is a system QB, like, guess what? His numbers in this system are elite. So let's stop.
Speaking of throws, what about the fact that Mike Evans is so good and doesn't seem to be able to catch footballs? Did you notice that too? Like he was making so many drops. I know it's a bit of a tangent, but it just kind of jogged my mind a little bit. Man, he dropped a lot of key passes for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which I think went
this week
a little
he dropped a couple. The week before he dropped way more, but didn't matter because they still won.
He looked like Marquez Valdez-Scantling out there.
Oh God. But either way, so yeah, we got in this game, and in the other game, Rob and I split. As I said before, I took the Chiefs. When Pat Mahomes and that offense is on, I don't bet against the Chiefs. That's just a rule I have. And so
that's probably very sound, very wise. And I hate the Ravens. I don't even like the fact that I'm taking the Ravens. Lamar seems to be on another level. Like I said, that team is deep. It doesn't matter who they get injured, what happens. They just seem to step up, and guys are playing hard for them. So they are the most complete team in my mind. But it is Pat Mahomes, and how do you bet against him in the Super Bowl? Or sorry, in the playoffs. Which brings us actually to best bets with Bookie Bob. If you're ready to go, Drew.
Sure.
Because I did not bet against Pat Mahomes. In fact, I have taken the Lions plus 10.5 and the Chiefs plus 7.5. $5 on each at plus 131, which will give me $11.57. I just think these are going to be close games. I think both of these teams could win it. I don't have the balls to take a money line, which would be a hell of a pick. But that's also perhaps me jinxing your team. I'm sure you're upset that I've put any money on the Lions, eh?
Yes. Yes. The fact that you picked the Lions and put money on the Lions, I'm like, God damn it. God fucking damn it. This is how I feel. You're just the ultimate jinx when it comes to this.
Yeah, yeah, but I do have two other bets out there. These ones are a little bit deeper. We got some more kind of player bets here. So I have a three-leg parlay. Rashee Rice, 4 receptions. Zay Flowers over 25 receiving yards. And Pacheco over 86.5 rushing and receiving yards. All of that in a parlay, 250 at plus 167. So that could cash out a total of 670. And then I have this is a six leg parlay for plus 531 is the grand total. And I've got your boy Laporta over 25 receiving yards and 4 receptions. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 5 receptions, 50 yards. Gibbs over 72.5 rushing, receiving, and McCaffrey over 124.5, which is a lot. That's probably the leg of that I'm not the most happy with. But at this point, CMC can't bet against them. That'll turn 250 into $15.79. So looking for some offensive action across the board in that NFC Championship game, as well as a couple of heavy hitters. I think the Pacheco line is pretty solid. He seems to be getting a lot of play over there in Kansas City. So we're wagering a total of $10 as of now, with around $30 total to win. What do you have over there, Drew?
Yeah, so I have a few. I did not complete any of my 6 TD parlays, which was a little bit disappointing. I think just because no QB had like 3 touchdown passes.
Well, Josh Allen had like 3 rushing touchdowns, right? Like the Goff had fun, like they just handed the ball off all day. So.
You know what? And it happened. So what I did is I went a little bit one way and a little bit another. So I did a similar bet: Purdy, Jared Goff, and Mahomes to combine for 6 passing TDs at plus 120. But then I did a little bit of a hedge against that, or a combo if it's highly scoring. And it's every team to have 1+ rushing touchdown at plus 500. That one I love the odds on, because Lions love to run the ball, especially in the goal line. I feel good about that. Ravens, you got Lamar running the ball, or you got like any of their running backs. Gus Edwards, love that one. 49ers, CMC, they love to hand the ball off to CMC in the red zone. Again, another great option. And then it's KC's kind of the wild card there. But at the end of the day, like Isaiah Pacheco, he's a bully down there. And how have you beat the Ravens throughout the regular season? Running the football. And the running game's been a lot better for the Chiefs. So it's like, to me, that logically, I get it. All 4 getting a rushing touchdown. Not necessarily going to happen. But at plus 500, I love those odds.
It's great odds. It's great odds. And I was looking at that pretty heavily too. So pay attention to our X/Twitter. And you might see an Uncle Bob bet on a similar line there. I like the Purdy, Goff, Mahomes 6+ passing touchdowns again. Really, you just need a situation in which it's a bit of a duel in Santa Clara, right? To give Goff and Purdy, a touchdown or 2 each. And this is, again, one of those ones where if Mahomes just throws for 3 touchdowns, this is almost like chalk, right? So unfortunately didn't hit for you last year. I did hit one of these. I forget what the combo was. I think it was Baker, Goff, and somebody else, but I did hit one of the 6 touchdown combos that they had given us. It seemed to be the one you didn't pick.
No, but if it was Baker, I'm a big it probably was, because I did not trust. I was like, I didn't trust in Baker.
yeah, exactly. So we'll see. I'm so hyped for this weekend. I will be missing, unfortunately, the first half of the games on Saturday, as I'll be flying to Mexico. But I'm hoping I should be able to. Oh, they're all on Sunday?
Sunday, 3 p.m. Sunday,
it's 2 games.
PM. Yep.
And actually, I knew that because I scheduled my flight on a Saturday specifically so I'd be home on Sunday to watch the game. So, great. Love the fact that I could be cozied up in Mexico watching the game. And really excited for this weekend. Man, just 3 games left in the National Football League for 2024. Any final thoughts, Drew?
Nope. I'm ready. Go Lions. If I'm sad next week, you'll know why. If I'm happy, you'll also know why. Either way, thanks for tuning in.
streaming?
Oh, I'm going to be streaming, absolutely. Going to be
Great.
streaming both the games, at Fourth and Goal 101 on Twitch.
See you there, folks. See you next week, and best of luck to the 4 teams remaining.
Okay. Have a great week, everybody. See ya.